My job and what I'd like to talk with you about tonight really is a little different than what I had set out to talk about initially when I was asked. Since I've got you here and you're a captive audience for a few minutes at least, I want to talk to you about the obligations that you have after this program and when you go on to your collegiate experiences, postgraduate experiences, and into the rest of your lives because of the skills that you've learned to know. And that's the obligation of service, and it picks up exactly where Gordon left off, the obligations of service to society, and why the people I'm looking at now are going to be, based on the experiences that you've had to get here and that you're learning here, the leaders of that society and what it means for you to fulfill those obligations. And then I want to close with bringing it back to trial lawyers and how trial lawyers have done that throughout society, how they continue to do that, and why it is perhaps so incredibly meaningful that this is the program that you've spent so many hours participating in. I am a huge, to the nominee and recipient of the Gordon Widenhouse Award, who I thought gave a great speech. I've been involved in Science Olympiad when on my days on the school board. I've been involved in math counts and forensics, but I don't think any program requires the combination of skills that this one does, or gives you the delivery that this one does, and I love all of it. But let me start off by talking a little bit about this idea of service, and wanted to sort of set out the theme for you since you've been spending months now developing your themes for your trials. And so service to others that you will undertake or have in the capacities that you are in your high schools is a way of thinking. It is, to me, an attitude that involves more than just responding to some verbalized need that a friend or a neighbor or someone in your church may have. It involves often, and in my profession very often, responding to unvoiced requests and capitalizing on the opportunity that we have as human beings to make life a little gentler for other people. It is an affirmative commandment and not a voluntary opportunity. Service to others, to our community, to our state, and to our country is something that we do, not just something we say. It is part of the standard of excellence of being a human being. So, in that sense, whether it is by giving of your time, or of your resources, or of the incredible skill and talent that you have to make a difference in solving the problems of this state, and they are many, of this country, and they are more, and of this world, and they are huge. It is not dependent just on your desire to do so, rather it is, I would argue to you tonight, your ethical and moral responsibility to do that. Each of us, our job is to leave this world a better place because we were here. And I believe in that regard, God is the creator of both rich and poor, and he wants all of his children to help each other. And the act of giving in our world, whether that world is in our high school this week, or that world is in our college, or the community we live in, or the state that we live in, for that moment that you do that, it is at least bringing us all together in a very special place. In my religion, there was a very learned rabbi many years ago by the name of Glazer, and he would give a coin to a beggar and begin to pray. And when he was asked to explain his actions, he quoted from the Bible, Psalms actually, and said, "Through giving shall I see God's face." Many centuries ago, there was another man by the name of philosopher and scholar by the name of Maimonides. Many of you probably studied something about Maimonides in school. And he said, service to others comes in many forms, but the best possible way you can ever do it is to help another person be a better person. And so, every one of us wants to climb up the ladder of success, but some of us, many of us, in fact all of us at some point in time, will need a hand to do so. And when we fall, and we all will at some point, the idea is to get back up and to move and try again, and to have someone there with their hand outreached to make it easy. So why should you give? You are brilliant, talented, exceptional students with the promise of extraordinary things to come. Well, I think there are 3 reasons I'm going to suggest to you, and being a trial lawyer has allowed me to do things I never thought I'd be able to, contribute to my community and state in ways I never thought I could. As a kid who was in high school, who suffered from stage fright and could never speak throughout my high school career, could never stand up in class, could never do anything I'm doing. The skills that I was taught, because we didn't have a high school program in college, and ultimately in law school, made a profound difference in my life, in my career, and in my opportunities. So what are those three things that suggest that all of us have ways that we can contribute and make ourselves better as well as our communities? First, I think as a human being, I hope you share the view that we're all morally commanded to help each other. Second, it is part of our responsibility towards our community, and it cannot be abdicated. And third, it helps us all become better people. So first, the commandment to help. It seems to me, if we can, I think, that we can use the things that have been given to us in this world to help each other. And in a sense, everything we possess has been loaned to us. We've been given the eyes, the ears, the hands, and in your case, the extraordinary minds, to learn and to grow, to mature and to make this world a better place for all people. A moral commandment exists that we all have to obey as people who care about each other, and that is to work together to lead the best possible lives we can, to share our good fortune of all the talents we have been given, both individually and as groups in our community. And in that regard, I suspect it is really, like most religions, all about the law of tithing. These things have been given to us, all of your talents and all of your skills, and they are the landlord's conditions in a sense. We are allowed to use those skills to reap profit and have incredible value in our lives, but only if we share in our bounty, whether that is our brains, or our time, or our money, or all of them, with each other, rich and poor, black and white, young and old. None of us can ever separate ourselves from the community in which we live. Second reason, this idea of community. There is a saying that I gave each of my children at their confirmation, or in my religion, their bar and bat mitzvahs. And it reads like this: if I am not for myself, who will be for me? But if I am only for myself, what am I? And if not now, when? Every one of you belongs to a family, some big and some small, some live in one place, others in multiple locations, but all families provide certain things to each other: clothing and food and shelter and love and companionship. And for a family to fulfill its commitment to every member, each person has responsibilities. Well, it is the same thing in our community. The community provides an education and protection and jobs and recreation and transportation, and just like our family, if we enjoy the benefits of our community, we have to contribute to its maintenance. And that means, as citizens, paying taxes, abiding by its laws, and contributing to the service, religious, and governing agencies in our state, our local community, and our nation. Think of simply what would happen if the people in this room, with the resources you have available, refused or just simply didn't do it. Illiteracy, hunger, homelessness, disease, starvation. We are, in the end, talking about very real people in our society who are dramatically affected by our contributions of time and assistance, or the lack thereof. And the goal of every member of the community, whether they are children, whether they are students, or whether they are adults, is to help alleviate human suffering wherever it is possible. In our lifetimes, we all have to be good children, eventually good parents, good siblings, good spouses, but we also have to be good stewards of our community. In North Carolina, at least in my view, we agree by living here that there is a trust placed in us to leave our community better places because we were here, and there is also a trust placed in us by future generations not yet born, and that is to fight our maintenance obligation against poverty and disease, ignorance and bigotry, and apathy and distrust. And frankly, the only way I know to do that is to create the kind of minds and the heart that exist in this room tonight. And so finally, the third reason that I believe in the idea of service, particularly by those who have an inordinately great capacity to give. And that is, it helps us become the person we all want to be. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "What lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us. And I think that is eminently true this evening. So I conclude this thought about the idea of making us better with two stories before I move to the trial lawyer issue. First is about a man named Alfred Nobel. Alfred Nobel won his fortune as the inventor of dynamite in our country. But he had a twin brother. And one day, his brother died, and a Swiss newspaper got the story wrong and printed Alfred Nobel's obituary instead of his brother's. And unlike the rest of us, Alfred Nobel had the opportunity to read his own obituary, and here's exactly what it read. Alfred Nobel, who invented a way to kill more people faster than anyone in history, died yesterday, a wealthy man. And Nobel thought to himself, that is not how I want to be remembered. And so he took his entire fortune and he devoted it to the Nobel Prizes. And so today, everyone associates Alfred Nobel with humanity and social justice and peace. And nobody knows he was the inventor of dynamite. And my second story about the idea of giving and what we're really all about as human beings. There was once a very famous miser who lived in biblical times. And he owned a very rich house, and a charity collector came by and knocked on his door, and the old man answered the door. And he looked at the charity collector and said, you know, I have retired, I've done my job. The only time anyone in this community ever comes by is to ask me for money. And I'm tired of it. It's mine, I earned it, and I'm going to keep it. And the charity collector said, well, let me just ask you to do two things for me, and then I'll leave. And the man said, all right. And the charity collector said, would you go to the window of your house and tell me what you see? And he looked out and he saw people walking on the street or the pavement in front of his house. He said, I see these people. He said, fine. He said, go to the mirror in your hall and look in the mirror and tell me what you see. He said, well, of course, I see only myself. And the charity collector looked at him and said, well, that's the moral of the story, isn't it? You look into the mirror and you see only the silver and yourself. You get outside to see the silver, and you look outside and you see everybody else. And so he said, take away the silver from the glass, and you see the rest of the community. And that is fundamentally our job, I think, as incredibly talented citizens that you will have, is to always remember to take away the silver from the glass and to see the rest of the community in all of the ways that you've now been given opportunity and skills and talent to assist.